Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 1 of season 2 of Loki, and I gotta say, look, obviously Marvel is in a very different place than it was back then. We've had, a lot of just okay movies, some people would say even just really bad movies, and shows that were not so well received in Marvel, and it just feels like, Marvel has a lot more to prove now than it did back when season 1 premiered, because Disney Plus was still a relatively new thing, and we were all excited about the aspect of the prospect of Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus, and now maybe not so much. So jumping into season 2, we're all like, oh man, is this gonna live up to it? And I gotta say, the other day I had only seen a couple reviews come out. I know everyone else's reviews came out, but the first 2 I saw were really negative and bad, and these reviewers had seen the first 4 episodes of this show, so I was immediately like, oh god, no. I was about to get so disappointed because I was like, no, tell me it's not bad. And I gotta say, this first episode, I'm really happy with this, so I hope it keeps going. I hope those those 2 reviews I saw were just weird outliers, because I have seen a lot of positive ones. So I'm just hoping that I keep in step with the way that those reviewers feel. But yeah, this first episode, so we left off with a couple of confusing things happening. So obviously Sylvie had killed He Who Remains. The time branches were getting out of control, and it was supposed to be this multiversal chaos and all that, right? And then Loki was seemingly stranded in a version of the TVA where no one knew who he was, and that's how he ended things. And it was all really confusing, all these theories about is there a multiverse filled with TVA? So are we gonna have a bunch of different TVAs fighting each other? And it was really confusing, because look, the rules of time travel in the multiverse in Marvel, sometimes they're not so consistent, so you sit here and you try to logic this out, and it doesn't always make sense. So I like to always just go by what Endgame did, you go back in time, you make a change that creates a branch timeline. It doesn't create a change in your timeline, because that's your present, even though you went back in the past, and it works like that. But the TVA works a little bit differently, it turns out. So in this one, what we established is that when Loki went back to the TVA and no one knew who he was, it's because he was in a past version of the TVA, one in which He Who Remains was a public ruling figure in the TVA. Everyone seemingly knew who he was, and he had his giant statues everywhere. So this was before the lie of the timekeepers was a thing. And so Loki's being pulled back and forth through time, as you might have seen in the trailers, where he gets all glitchy and weird. And everyone's kind of astonished by this, because there's not, they thought that the TVA does not have a past and future. So seemingly what's going on here is that instead of creating a branch timeline like you would see in a normal place in the Marvel universe, the TVA does operate more of a Back to the Future type rules, because Loki creates a change in the past, and now that change appears in the future. So he cracked a floor by breaking this television screen, and it cracked a floor. So when he went back to the future, that crack now appears, and he asked everyone about the crack, and he's like, yeah, that crack's been there as long as I remember. So he actually can change his future by jumping back to the past. And already we see a bunch of things that feel like they're gonna definitely come back in a couple episodes, and so we'll try to go through these, but it's already okay, pay attention to all this stuff, because it's definitely going to be important later. So first, basically what they discuss is, Loki's freaking out, Mobius telling him all about He Who Remains and how he's like this guy, and he's the multiversal war and a bunch of different versions of Kang the Conqueror, and he doesn't know him by that name yet. He only knows him as He Who Remains. So I'm sure we'll get to that point. But at the, currently Mobius is like, okay, but also we just found out that everyone is a variant, and he's been called to the war room with B-15, and they have to talk about how, like, okay, so obviously the timekeepers were a lie. We see a giant robot head on the table, and we need to stop pruning all these different timelines, because all we're doing really is just killing billions of people. Every single time they prune a timeline, they're killing everyone in that timeline. So they talk about how, like, we've been committing atrocities because we thought we were protecting the sacred timeline, but if the timekeepers are a lie, then why are we doing this? Of course, Loki later says, oh, but he was right though, like, we are actually preventing a bunch of other versions of He Who Remains, so Loki's terrified, and he seems to be on the side of, no, we should keep pruning things. But in the more immediate situation, they're trying to keep Loki in one place because, Mobius is basically like, hey, we can't do anything if you're going to keep disappearing and jumping back and forth through time. So they have to go to the time loom, which it's the physics and the ideas of how this works. This is where we start getting real confusing. So raw time is loomed, like a loom, right, in real life. It is spun into the sacred timeline, and what they have to do is get Loki's signature energy across the past and the present and the future focused, I guess, and they have to pull him into just one place. That way he's gonna get unstuck from jumping back and forth and back and forth. That's the best explanation I can think of how this makes any kind of sense. But they do a fun segment where, like, they're talking to the new character Ouroboros, of course played by everyone's favorite short round actor. He's great. He's already, like, he's so optimistic and upbeat. Like, he just fits the tone of this show perfectly. And, like, it's the show is quirky. That's the best way I can think of describing it, and he just fits it so well. Like, everyone's just got, like, these weird, quirky personalities, and he's definitely fits right in. Anyways, they do a funny thing where, like, he's like, oh, I've never met Loki before, and then Loki jumps to the past and he talks to him, and then in the present he's like, oh no, wait, I have met Loki before. So, like, we see actively as Loki in the past is changing things in the present, and it's happening simultaneously because Loki talks about how we need to build this device, and that way in the present he just has the device ready. He's like, oh no, it's right here, I've had it the whole time. Weird. So very, very interesting stuff. And yeah, like I said, it's, they specifically said in Avengers Endgame that this is not how time travel works, but it seems that in the TVA, because I have to assume that the TVA is separate from the multiverse, this is how time travel works, because you cannot create a branch of the TVA. That's the only way I can think that this makes any logical sense at all, is that for whatever reason, you cannot create a time branch of the TVA. There's no multiverses, there's no alternate timeline versions, there's only one TVA, but that means that when you go back in time, it does actually change things for that specific TVA, because there's only one. You know what I mean? Like, so already it's like, okay, hold on, let me fry my brain for a second, because I gotta think this through of how this makes sense. Anyways, so Mobius has to get into this funny looking suit. He has to go out there with the device, and he has to aim it at the time loom and try to pull all present Lokis at the same time. And Loki has this little device, and when it turns green, he's supposed to prune himself. But at the last minute, Loki ends up jumping. You know, of course, no one knows where he's going to be in the future, in the past, you know, who knows. He ends up jumping into the future, who knows how far into the future this is. You know, he sees that Owen Wilson had, you know, drawn, you know, skin, because they make a joke about being de-skinned. You know, so he sees the dust drawing that Owen Wilson had made. So he's like, okay, so I'm past, you know, or I'm in the future. He knows that much. And the TVA seemingly is in chaos. Alarms are blaring. The electricity's going out. And that's kind of the other, you know, running clock here, is that because the TVA has decided to stop pruning timelines. That's like the one command they give, because they don't, you know, they just figured out that all their gods are dead, right? So they decided to stop pruning timelines, but that also means that there's like an excess of temporal energy that the time loom was not ready for, causing all these weird electrical, you know, problems in the TVA. So I don't know if this future is connected to that, because all the, you know, electricity is kind of flickering in and out, and the alarms are going off, and everyone's like evacuating to somewhere. But you know, Loki's here now, and he's like, I gotta prune myself. The little thing turned green. I need to find a stick that I can prune myself with. So he hears a phone ringing, and before he can pick it up, the elevator opens, and it's Sylvie, and Sylvie's like, oh, there you are. And then before he can say anything, Loki gets pruned by someone in the back. So someone prunes him from behind, and that's exactly what he needed to happen, because the thing was turning green. And now he's back with Mobius, and he's seemingly that plot line is fixed. So this whole thing where like we kind of thought Loki was going to get stranded in some kind of alternate TVA where no one knew where he was, that seems to be solved. So there you go, that's fixed. And now we know a lot more about how time works in the TVA, I guess. It's still really confusing. But now they can kind of go try to solve the more immediate issues. One is that during their whole war room meeting, Loki had like revealed He Who Remains, and he had told everyone the truth, but there's like this one general who, you know, kind of believes him, and then there's another general who definitely seemingly does not. And she's like, yeah, but we need to keep pruning stuff, and just because, you know, just because the timekeepers were fake doesn't mean they were wrong. And so she has her soldiers raid the armory to get a whole bunch of those like pruning grenades and a whole bunch of pruning sticks, and they're like, you know, there's like 100 of them. They're going through these time doors, and you know, they think that they're all going after Sylvie, which maybe they are, maybe they're not, and who really knows. They don't seem to be talking to anyone, they just leave. And B-15's like, they're going after Sylvie? All of this for just Sylvie? I don't buy it. So something's going on. You know, it's hard to tell what's happening. But anyway, so they're going, and then of course now Loki and Mobius can focus on like, well, let's solve this whole He Who Remains Kang thing. Oh, we also do get another update, is that Loki had glitched to the past in the same war room, but it was like the past version, because the giant mural was He Who Remains on the wall. And he hears this recording that somebody had made, where it's He Who Remains talking to Ravonna Renslayer, talking about how like, oh, you're my favorite, you're gonna be a great commander, a leader of this place. So at some point, He Who Remains had erased everyone's memories, even hers, and replaced his position with the timekeepers. Now, why did he do this? What was the point of all this? You know, who knows? Where did Ravonna Renslayer go after season 1 of Loki? Did she go to the past? Did she go to the future? Did she actually know all of this the whole time? Who knows? There's so many questions that we have still, because honestly, season 1 left us with like a lot to think about, you know, like, and that is one thing that so far, you know, this show has just done a great job of, is like, it will introduce a whole bunch of questions, but it will still try to explain new things to you. So now you have to go back and rethink about everything that's happened and be like, okay, hold on. Like, you gotta fry your mind for a second and be like, okay, so The TVA is outside of time, so it has its own past and future that can be affected by going to the past, affecting things in the present. And it's a whole thing. And then last we see Sylvie seemingly immediately after killing He Who Remains. She seemingly just goes to some random McDonald's in the 80s, and I guess this is where she's gonna get a job there, because she says, oh, I want to try everything. She sees all these people being happy, and so I guess she's gonna go on sort of some kind of journey of self-discovery, or at least like she wants to live a normal life for a while, so she's gonna work here. Who knows how long? Obviously we see in the trailer that they have some kind of confrontation with her while she's at the McDonald's, but it's very, very interesting because all these people are seemingly going after Sylvie, but she's at McDonald's now, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Like this is one of those shows where like anything could happen in the next episode. Like they're not like bound by just a linear timeline. They're not bound by one location. Like they could totally surprise us by having literally anything happen. So so far I'm really into this season. Obviously, like it's really complicated. It feels like they introduce new rules every episode, but they're also trying to address all the different lingering plot threads that we had from the end of last season. But I am glad that at the very least they have closed off one, because I feel like they really needed to, because we have so much stuff happening now. So Loki is now normal, and he's with Mobius, and they're in the present day for them, and now they can solve the He Who Remains thing, the Sylvie thing. We still have the Ravonna Renslayer mystery, like what's going on with her. So we have a lot of stuff happening right now, and the thing is, like, on top of all of this, Loki doesn't know the full picture. He doesn't know about the Council of Kangs, and because obviously, we've seen Quantumania. We know that out there in the timeline, in the multiverse, the Council of Kangs is already in existence. Like we saw them all gather, the thousands of Kangs. So like, are they gonna figure out that like, okay, we're too late, that they already exist, or at the very least, like they have, the moment that He Who Remains died, they all existed instantaneously, and because time is a flat circle, past and present, kind of instantly happen. Does that mean that they have been around, but only the second that he died is when they always existed? It gets real confusing. Anyways, so we're gonna find out what happens. It feels like, we can sit here and theorize, but it's feels kind of silly to try to guess what might happen in the next episode because of how wild this show can get. So anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys think about episode 1 of Loki. I'm totally back in. I feel like, it feels like we never left. It feels like okay, the next week I woke up and a new episode of Loki came out, even though it's been 2 years now. It feels good to feel this way about a Marvel project. It's, Quantumania had its problems, and then, Secret Invasion was a thing that happened. So, it feels good to be like, okay, I'm fully invested in a Marvel project, the mystery, the theories, the, how the rules are, and it just, it feels good, especially after like Ahsoka was so good, and then Ahsoka ended, and now we got Loki starting. And of course Gen V also, there's a new episode of Gen V out, and that show's been really good so far. So it feels like we're back in a really good time for TV right now, so I'm totally down for it. Let me know what you guys think about the first episode of season 2 of Loki, and your theories, your crazy theories as to like what the hell is happening. Is this general late? I'm curious about this general who's seemingly like, oh, but they're right, we still have to prune everything, and no one seems to be trying to stop her. Like we had another general who told everyone to stop pruning stuff, but like it's like no one's really in control, like because they just lost their leadership, and Ravonna's gone, and the timekeepers are gone, and it's like they're just kind of left to do whatever they want. So anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Bye.